All right, hey America. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't even really want to do this video, and that's not to sound pessimistic, but it's essentially a head-to-head comparison video with two companies whom I both like. So I'm really doing it mostly because there's a decent amount of comments and stuff saying, hey, well, how does Meridian Defense compare with Rifle Dynamics? And I thought, well, that's a perfectly valid question. I would ask the same question myself. I don't really want to be the one to go out and do a video on it, and yet here we are. And it's the last video of the day. So if any point during this you see me nod, it's because we're on video number 9 for the day. But let's compare these two. And the first thing that I'm going to give you on this Meridian versus Rifle Dynamics comparison is these really aren't the two guns that should be compared, okay? Because what we have here is a Meridian Defense Pestilence, and then we have a Rifle Dynamics 702, which is their 700 production series gun. Both of them chambered in 7.62. So there are definitely some comparisons, but they are stylistically different guns, okay? So we'll talk about these two guns, but I'm also going to give you what I think is a better comparison and just draw some parallels between the two. So let's start with the Meridian, and I'm going to reference a bit more notes than I typically do, just because, hey, my brain has a limit to how many things it can hold, which is about 3. And so anything over that, I need to write it down. So first things first, start with the Pestilence. So look, it's $1,600. And in terms of bang for your buck that's out there in the AK space, of course, $1,600 is not a cheap AK. But in terms of like very high-end AKs, like the best AKs you can get, $1,600 is a steal, okay? It really is. I said it when we did a dedicated video of this gun, and I'll say it again. I believe this gun is highly undervalued, which, hey, I'm sure that's part of the reason that it's sold well for those guys, but it's also sold well because it's just very, very, very cool. Okay, so $1,600, great bang for your buck. A few things about this, and I'm just going to kind of rattle off a list. One, you get to pick your muzzle device, and I think that that is a very important and nice thing with Meridian. So I've got a dead air brake on there because I run dead air cans, so it makes life very, very easy to keep this streamlined across the board for me. 12 to 14 lead, 12 to, again, I told you if I'm not off during this video, you remember I'm tired right now, okay? So 12 to 14 week lead time, and I'm just quoting from their site on that. Obviously, we've got a Romanian parts kit, stamped receiver. The receiver thing will become important in a bit. And black nitrided barrel, obviously all the wood and everything's refinished. We've got an Ultimac rail, which is going to be the same for the RD. One thing that's a bit unique here, we do have a side rail. So if you wanted to like properly mount your optics versus what I do on the Ultimac, you could do that. I'm just not a big fan of side rails, so I like that it's there, but I have no personal use for it. And we have a G2 tuned trigger. We can do a trigger comparison here momentarily. And then this gun comes, and this is an important note, comes suppressor tuned. And I have validated that by shooting it suppressed, never had a hiccup or a flub. It shoots very well suppressed, and that's not you know, necessarily the easiest thing in the world for AKs. So let's flip over. Let's look at the RD. Okay. One thing you will notice with that Meridian is that it has a steel mag in it. That gun is a little not friendly with PMags in my experience, so just be aware of that. It is more of a steel mag gun if you did wind up purchasing one of those. The 702, so it starts at $2,200, okay? And so starting at $2,200 is obviously a big price jump from the $1,600 on the Pestilence. Again, it's really not a fair apples to apples comparison, so I'm letting you know that in advance because obviously you've got a wood stock there, and here we've got a collapsible M4 stock. So again, I'm just reiterating that so no one yells at me about it, okay? If you would like a different muzzle device than comes on the gun, extra $165, okay? So you gotta factor that on top of the $2,200, okay? Again, that's a point for Meridian to me, is the ability to pick and choose your muzzle device, because that's something that for a lot of us, we're gonna be picky on, so I do think that's a point for Meridian. If you would like a side rail on this, because you will notice no side rail. Again, personally, don't care that much, but it is an added value feature that if you want it on the RD, an extra $150, okay? So if you wanted a side rail and muzzle device, you know, you're looking at about $300 on that. And they're posting a 6-month lead time, so you do have about twice the lead time. And again, this is not me taking a position on this, I'm just reporting facts as I seeing them on the site. And I don't see mention of this on the Rifle Dynamics site anymore. I know a while ago, if you wanted your gun suppressor tuned, that was an extra charge. I don't remember what the charge was, but it was an extra charge if you wanted to suppressor tune your gun. I don't see that listed anymore, but I also don't see listed that these guns come suppressor tuned. So I'm going to assume by default, they are not suppressor tuned. Could be inaccurate in that. Not 100% positive, but assume that if you were gonna run a can on your gun, you're gonna have to have them suppressor tune that. Okay. And while we're on it, let me give you a comparison of the triggers, because honestly, they're basically identical. Like there's very little to compare here. You can throw an ALG trigger in your Meridian. They will do that. Rifle Dynamics advises against that. Actually, when last time they had this gun for some service stuff, they said, hey, look, don't run that ALG trigger in our gun. That's not advised. So they put in a G2 tuned trigger, just like my Meridian. And to tell you the truth, you're really not going to detect much in the way of a difference between the two. For an AK trigger, they're both very, very, very good. They're about as good as you're going to get from one of these guys. And so yeah, there's no screaming difference in the two there. What I think is more relevant, however, is if we look at, okay, let's pick two models that would be as close to being the same from these companies as we can. Now, despite not having experience on these, I have experience with the companies and their guns, so at the very least, we can have a little bit of fun with this. So the two guns that I would compare would be the Volk from Meridian, and then the Rifle Dynamics 702 MB47. I'm gonna say why I would compare those two. So let's go through the Volk.
Real men own a home, a big one. They definitely don't live in their uncle's garage. Everyone knew you were cooking meth in there anyway. Is it really a surprise that it burnt down and you wound up in a high-speed pursuit with the sheriff's office? And guess who won't be there in 18 months to pick you up when you finally get out? Moi.
It's not about you. Just wrap it up.
1911 Syndicate can totally help you buy a home. Unless you're broke, in which case they can't.
Volk is $26.50. And I know that's a lot of money for an AK. Like that's pretty, well, not as much as an AK can be, but it's definitely in that top tier price tag of an AK. $26.50. You get to choose your own muzzle device. Okay, so there's no charge for that. If you would, that gun does not come with a side rail. If you'd like to add a side rail, it's $35. So essentially free. $35. Not gonna break the bank if you already spent $26.50. That gun comes, and this is an important note, comes on a Sharps Brothers MB47 milled receiver. So if you were like, hey, look, I want the best AK shit I can get, cool, go get a Sharps Brothers receiver. They're more expensive, but they're milled receivers. I've never had an issue with stamped receivers, but hey, you know, I guess there's an advantage to a milled receiver. But the Volk will come with that. Also comes with an ALG trigger. Obviously, I'm sure they would have no issue if you said, hey, can you do one of these G2 triggers instead? But it does come with an ALG trigger. Black nitrided barrel comes suppressor ready. Again, an important distinction. So really, if you look at the Volk, you go, look, this is Meridian's top of the line gun. The only thing you can do to make it better or even like more expensive, depending on how you look at it, is add a side rail, and that's going to cost you $35. So really, you've got a gun that's a little less than $2,700, that it is pimped out as you can make it. That thing's decked out with rails, and I mean, it's cool. Like, guys, I'm leveling with you. That gun makes me drool. Like, it is a gun that 100% makes me drool. So then you go over to the Rifle Dynamics equivalent of that, which would be their 702, which is essentially this, and the Volk's going to be similar. It's going to be on an M4 stock. So their 702 MB47 is essentially going to be like this, but it's going to be as decked out as they can make it. So starts at $2,600. Okay, so it's a little bit less than the Meridian when we start, but that's going to change. Again, if you wanted to add a different muzzle device, $165, okay? If you wanted to, and so it comes like this. If you wanted to add an M-LOK handguard, that's an extra $210, which I gotta tell you, I mean, just my 2 cents, at $2,600, like I want that gun to come with a handguard, you know what I mean? The big difference in what you're paying for there between this and the MB47 is it's coming on a Sharps Brothers receiver. So essentially the price is going up $400. The gun is in essence the same, but the price is going up $400 because of that milled receiver, okay? So $210 if you want an M-LOK handguard. If you want a side scope rail, $150. Again, I'm not showing an option for suppressor tuning. I would assume it's an option, but you would have to pay for that again. So really, I mean, if you factor in, look, putting on the brake that you want, which is standard at Meridian, a M-LOK handguard, which is standard at Meridian, side scope rail, which is only gonna cost you $35 there, you're looking at a total, like if you try to make these two guns as comparable as possible, you're looking at a total Rifle Dynamics cost of $31.25. And that's with a 6-month lead time, so it would be roughly twice the lead time. So again, this isn't really so much an opinion thing because like I said, I have a good relationship with both of these companies. So I'm not out here to, you know, say anything negative about anyone, but in terms of dollars spent for what you get, it would seem to me that Meridian's got a little bit better game right now because at $2,650, you're basically getting the best shit you can get. And at $2,600, you get the basis of a good, very good rifle at Rifle Dynamics, but you still got about $500 worth of shit that you're gonna have to throw in there to make it comparable. In terms of the guns themselves, hey, well, which one would you, you know, trust or buy if you were buying one? I don't really want to take an opinion on that. I think the only real notable thing that this is not like secret information, this is, you know, old news, but obviously, look, Rifle Dynamics was built by Jim Fuller, and Jim exited the company a handful of months ago and would appear as starting his own shop now. Again, this is not me, I'm not, you know, alerting anyone to anything that's not public knowledge, but you know, Jim's starting his own shop. So the only thing you do have to ask is, hey, look, right now Meridian is like 100% like really in their prime and they're hitting their stride and like shit's good there. You at least have to, I think you would be intelligent to at least ask the question, hey, look, can Rifle Dynamics maintain the same quality and same builds that they had when after the founder, who's made it what it was, can it maintain that? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying, hey, it is a question that at least I would pose without taking a position on it. So at the end of the day, I can tell you this as a consumer of both companies, they've both been phenomenal guns. They both shoot like as good as AKs can shoot, like real deal. I mean, they're both great guns. I have zero negative to say on either of these guns. I love them both. They're excellent. These are both personal guns. So, hey, let that be for what it is. These are personal guns. These aren't like loaners or anything. I own and paid for all of this shit, which is probably why I'm not wealthy right now, because all my money goes into nice AKs. So I love both. You really can't go wrong with either. Just some food for thought. So I hope for the people who've been asking for a comparison video, hopefully that lends you at least some support. And I'm gonna go take a nap now. I'm tired and I'm gonna go take a nap probably right here. So if you never hear from us again, coyotes got us. And hopefully no bears. We don't really have bears here, but yeah. Anyway, if you don't hear from us again, it's been real. And tell my mom that I did something good with my life. And even if we know that's a lie, tell her anyway. And thanks. Bye, kids.